The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digitalk brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here, Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
This is the Interface Show. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga, 17 minutes past 10 a.m. First of all, I would love to apologize to all of you. We have started a bit late, but as the white man says, better late than never. I would love to welcome all of you to this edition of the Interface Show. The Interface Show happens every Saturday from 10 to 12 midday. We have a conversation with retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye on how some of the things are really working out in this country. There are very many things that are happening. As we speak today, Parliament is planning on new taxes. Those will be imposed on adult diapers, in fact all diapers. Those are baby pampers and adult pampers. Then I think there is also another tax that is going to be levied on the water that you drink. 75 shillings will be levied on each and every bottle of water that you take. Those are some of the ways that government thinks we should or we can help raise more taxes that will help this country be a better country. Throughout the week, we started off with a very sad story, the death of retired Colonel Charles Okello Engola. Unfortunately, he was gunned down by his bodyguard, that is Private Sabiti. A very, very sad event that happened while this week was starting off. That was on Tuesday. Ironically, just after we were celebrating the Labor Day. Up to today, we don't know what is going to happen when the burial, but I think they've communicated that the burial will be happening next week. We shall be informing you more of what will be coming in from that particular, story. We have other news stories that have been making rounds in social media. King Charles will be coronated today. It's going to be the first monarchical change in 70 years for Britain. It's something that many of us have not witnessed. The other that many people may have, some people that may have witnessed was the 1952 when the Queen Elizabeth was being crowned Queen of England. So that is another story that is happening. In Uganda, we have many stories and we're going to be looking at that. I already have retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye in studios and we're going to start on that. Always a privilege having you on the show. You're welcome, Doctor.
A great pleasure, Edgar, and a very good morning to all the viewers and listeners wherever you are joining us from this weekend. I'm surprised that you call 17 minutes late a small delay. This is a huge delay that should not really happen, and unfortunately the cause of the delay because there was a road traffic accident on my way coming here, right near my home in Lutete, which blocked the road for a long time, and the traffic was crazy all over us. It's even a miracle that I have managed to get here. So really we are very, very sorry for this late, very late beginning of this show. I hope that you've had a good week. And those who have had challenges, always my sympathy and prayers to all of you who have lost dear ones, who have sick patients in hospitals, in our terrible hospitals. My sympathies go out to you. And those who have had good events, I also join you in your celebration. Welcome to the Digitalk.
Thank you so much, Doctor, and it's always a privilege, let me say it again, to have you on the show, to have you educate. But before we even delve into this discussion, Doctor, over time now, you have had a campaign that has been going on, and you have been intentional about telling Ugandans to really rise up or to save their country. And you're saying that this country, many things are going wrong. Some of us are seeing them. Ugandans are seeing the many things that are going wrong. You have mentioned these things. As someone who has a vision, you have a goal, right? And this particular goal that you have has got some, what we call, goals have targets. And when you're going to have these targets, you always have what we call indicators to see that there's a success that you're having. Doctor, your goal and your vision of informing Ugandans, how has it paid off for you? Are there some indicators that are showing that there is success? Are people heeding what you have been telling them? Do you think that there's something, are there indicators for success in your quest for informing Ugandans to rise up for their country?
Oh yes, it's a process. Changing the minds of people is a very, very slow process, but one that nonetheless is happening. You see, we have lived through centuries of domination where people have no voice, have no rights, have no freedoms. And once it takes a very long time, it becomes ingrained in their own system, in their own culture. You have a culture of the dominated. Yes. It becomes, it is pervasive. It goes into our whole living way of life. Yes. So to change it will not happen overnight, that you tell people and their culture changes. No, it's a process that takes a bit of time, but I believe that is happening. And we must, my message has been that all those who have realized the need to change our way of thinking, our way of life, all have a duty to continue pumping that message until a critical number of people appreciate that yes, domination is unacceptable and can be ended, to regain confidence that you can end your situation of being dominated, and that you can become free, and that you can become the master of your country. I have said that, increasingly more and more people appreciate that, and that is why there is resistance. People resist, not as yet to the extent that causes a whole shift of the system, but there is a whole lot of people resisting at various levels, across the country. And that's what we need to build on and continue empowering the people.
So you're saying there is success? People are heeding what you're telling them?
Yes, and I'm saying that it's a process, it's a slow process. You see, it's like, the whole message of salvation, you know, of people knowing that there is life after death, and that there is a way to that life. This message has been here for a very long time, but because, you know, it's not easy to change the mindset of people. You find people still looking for life in witch doctors and in so yes, so it's a process. It's a process. I am saying that I am not myself dissatisfied with the progress that is being made. Yes. We could have made much better progress, especially if the people who should have a better understanding, who are the elites, you know, the people who have gone to school, who have been exposed, who know how other countries live and work, those would be the people at the front line in the fight for that change to happen. Regrettably, we have a disadvantage in that area in our country. The greatest majority of our elites are highly selfish, greedy, look and work for short-term benefits, you know, material benefits, you know, which is why, you know, the grabbing amongst the elites is phenomenal. So that has been a challenge, that the people who are delivering that message, who should be the role models for others to follow in our country, have been rather a letdown.
Okay. Doctor, I want us to go into the first story. This week, we started off with a gruesome murder of Minister Ngola. So unfortunate for that. Did you know this gentleman, or do you have any comment about him?
Unfortunately, I don't. I didn't work with him. I didn't interact with him. I didn't know what kind of person he really was. I have, you know, been trying to find out actually after this incident what sort of person he was. He seems to have come from a background of a family of chiefs, you know, in the Lango setting, the Rohots. So he was some kind, he had a noble kind of background. And he seems to have joined the military early on. I think he didn't go very far in pursuit of formal education. I think he got his degree while recently, you know, so he went into the military, I think, a little earlier. So I really cannot speak on him as a person, but simply maybe to say that I had not had adverse stories around him, which quite many of our leaders tend to attract once they are in leadership. So I suspect that he was maybe, you know, not one who was at the front of doing things that are, you know, harmful to our society. And really my condolences go to his family and to relatives and friends upon that kind of tragic end. But yeah, you know, I think every happening should be an opportunity to learn and to reflect and to take lessons from. And I think that's what is more important in this situation.
Exactly, and that's where I want us to really go and look at what are some of the learning outcomes from this particular tragic death? Because when you look at the background of some of the information that we have, the preliminary information shows that there was a dissatisfaction on the side of Private Sabiti who carried out this act, showing a lot of destitute problems, saying that he does a lot and he's gaining less. What are some of the things we learned from this experience, Doctor?
You see, even before we go to Private Sabiti or the circumstance in which this particular event happened, I have been saying repeatedly over a long time that if you don't have justice, you cannot have peace. And, you know, trying to counter the false, grossly misleading claim by the leaders of the NRM Museveni junta that they have ushered in peace into Uganda. And Uganda is a peaceful country since 1986. They have brought peace. Peace is not the absence of war.
What is peace?
Peace is the presence of justice. Justice which engenders stability and equal opportunities, which engenders, provision of necessaries for everybody. As long as you have an unfair and unjust system, you cannot have peace. And that unjust system in which all of us live is the beginning of what we witnessed. Because we are in a country of those who are highly privileged and those who are totally marginalized. Marginalized by the privileged. That system of injustice is a very dangerous and unsustainable system. You may have heard something which has been played a lot on social media, stated by the now permanent secretary of the Ministry of Finance.
He's called
Ramadan
Gobi.
He said that in Uganda, the poor cannot sleep.
Yes.
Because they are hungry. You see?
Yes.
The rich cannot sleep
because the poor are hungry.
Because they are worried about the poor.
Who are hungry.
Who are hungry that they will attack them, you know? And that cannot be a state of peace. So, you know, you have a country now where anybody who is anyone must be guarded, must have guns around him to protect him. Not even just those in the government, but even those in the private lives, including very, very instructively, religious leaders. You know, a religious leader should be one of those who should be very free amongst his flock. You find religious leaders heavily guarded. I understand one even has a bulletproof car.
Yeah. to guard themselves.
You know, that is the epitomization of a system of injustice, you know, of those who are privileged in deep fear of the rest of the people and seeking to protect themselves. And that is indeed evidenced in the way we live. Most people who have anything live in prisons by building high walls around their homes and putting sengenge on top and putting all other kinds of protection, the CCTV, the dogs, they are worried about what is behind the wall. So that is the system that creates what happened to Minister Engola. In the first place, you go to places like, like Sweden, especially the Scandinavian countries, even the Netherlands, places like those. You'll find a prime minister, not just a minister, a prime minister on a bicycle,
yes,
going to office,
yeah,
stopping at traffic lights like all others with his bike, waiting for the lights to go on, and he continues.
I have been here and I told you that the King of England, King Charles, moves in one car. Just one car like this.
Yes, so we should never pretend that NRM ushered in peace. NRM is the creator of an unjust, insecure, and dangerous situation that Ugandans find themselves in because of the injustice. And that injustice actually is traceable into the NRA even before it became government. The NRA in which I served during the war.
Yes.
There was a phenomenon there which I have had time to comment on some time back, of classes. They would say, this is the size of the commander, size ya commander. In other words, any good thing, whether it was food, whether it was clothes, whether it was what, it was the preserve of the commander, size ya commander. That is why even there were two Magaras. One Magara was a commander, another Magara was not a commander.
Some Magara was the commander.
Yes, the Magara who was not a commander, to identify him from the other one, was called Magara Atali Ankoko.
So the unequalness was there even in the bush?
Absolutely.
I thought in the bush everybody was...
No, so this is where it starts, And some of us had issues with that kind of situation, especially amongst people who should have been comrades, colleagues in a struggle where nobody's getting any pay.
Exactly.
We have all volunteered our lives to fight and save. So the camaraderie should be reflected in how social amenities are available to all. That was not there. And so it is that injustice that we nurtured in the bush that was ushered into the country. It is that injustice that has created the most corrupt regime that Uganda has ever witnessed.
Yes, please.
Official, institutionalized corruption of an untold magnitude, of course headed or spearheaded, supervised by Mr. Museveni himself. That is why, he has institutionalized the system that takes taxpayers' money in billions to his home daily for matters that are not supposed to be known by those whose money is being taken to his home, So we have a system of institutionalized corruption and injustice. And that's why everybody must be guarded who is a beneficiary of that injustice. He must be heavily guarded. And the people guarding them themselves are part of the victims of the injustice. Just like in the bush, the people being guarded are the ones who eat chicken. The people guarding them, they are the Magaras abatali ankoko.
But the Magaras have guns.
Yes, and that is where this comes from. So you have people with guns who guard those who eat chicken while they don't even have beans to eat with their rotten posho. You know, that is the injustice. So, you know, and I even before I left the UPDF, I actually authored a document for the UPDF calling upon the leadership of the UPDF to reflect on the dangerous path along which it was being built. I don't expect that happened not long before I totally retired from the force. I doubt that.
That was 1999 at the time?
That was possibly 1998. It was not related to the document that was eventually published in the one of the military has never been published. But what I was talking about, you see, the NRA was like a militia force.
Yes.
It was a militia, irregular force. When you come into government and talk about having a regular military force, then you have to scrupulously regulate that force.
Yes.
Meaning there must be very clear rules and that are scrupulously followed. Rules on how one becomes a soldier, rules on how one is trained, rules on how you are deployed, rules on how you are promoted,
exactly,
rules on your welfare, so that, you know, if I am a sergeant, I know what kind of housing I am entitled to. I know what kind of reward, pay I should get, any allowances I should get, what transportation I should use. These must be very clearly prescribed so that everybody understands how they will navigate through the ranks of the force to the top.
Yes.
You know, that is not what happens in the UPDF. So the UPDF largely remained the militia,
NRA.
the militia that it was. It is still a militia. It's not a regular force because you have, so when you come to welfare of all these people, you may find a lieutenant has a vehicle. A major is on foot.
Yeah.
The lieutenant has a house. The major has no house. The allowances, you know, and those allowances are part of the serious problem within the UPDF, because just like money goes to State House, that it is for secret work in the home.
Classified.
Yes. Classified expenditure within the military is similarly an area of highly segregated application. And whoever gets this money, it means that person can also dispense patronage. Yeah. Because first of all, it's not regularly accounted for. So you find whether it is the battalion commander or whoever, we also choose those to give favors, which should never happen. And normally they'll give favors for those who are doing things that are not really formal or even legal. You find they are the ones who get those privileges and do errands on behalf of this boss. So once you get a force that behaves like that, people have been talking, to get deployment in the UPDF, people bribe.
Yes.
To get, to be put on the list to go to Somalia.
People, that is even far. People bribe to enter the army.
This is the whole thing. Yes, this is what I'm saying. That's why I said that once those regulations, the regulation right from how you enter, how you get trained, how you get deployed, how you get promoted, how you get, once those are not scrupulously followed, you are in trouble. And that is what goes on in the whole force. Illegal entry, not following those rules, including, I have talked many times about the illegal entry of General Muhoozi. General Muhoozi entered the UPDF illegally, not following the set down procedures.
How did he enter?
Illegally, just like that, because his father, I think, directed I don't know, he directed someone to take him on and to be sent. So how do people go to Sandhurst? How do people get trained? How do you choose which young people to do cadet where? What processes are there? I've said that, and this is very clearly how one becomes admitted to the commission of the UPDF is or has been a clearly spelled out process that is not followed, including now by this 4-star general who entered the force illegally, has been promoted at various levels, illegal, not following the procedures, and so on and so forth. So once you have a force like that, then you have no regular force.
Come to mention
we've been talking about General Muhoozi, who is now on a political campaign, while a serving military officer.
He recently met President Museveni, but we shall talk about
it
later.
While a serving military officer. But nobody in the force has power over that.
Yes.
So we don't have a regular professional military force. We have a militia that is personally controlled by some warlords and used for whatever purposes the warlord requires.
Yes.
And that is extremely dangerous for the country. So, but going back to the Angola death, so there are two injustices. First of all, the injustice that is general, which makes Angola privileged and requiring to have people to guard him. Angola should never have been guarded. You can live, if a country is peaceful, you don't even need to have soldiers in your compound. No, you don't need. And even those who need protection, you'll never find civilian people protected by people with machine guns. If anybody needs protection, it would be invisible. People in lay clothes who are moving around, you'll never notice that this person is being guarded. So the first cause of Angola's death is the institutionalized injustice that privileges some while others are totally marginalized and requires those who are privileged to guard themselves against the rest. That's why you hear all these sirens of people taking privileged people because they cannot stop anywhere. They will be in danger, you know, including their families. It's not just guarding the leader, but even their families are equally guarded. You find children of this one, of that one, with a convoy also guarding them with the sirens and so on. So that is the first thing that must be dealt with in our country, you know. The second thing that must be dealt with is the institution of the military and security. The security and military institutions must be made regular. And that regularity must be enforced scrupulously so that people have, terms that that are known, have pathways to advancing in the military or security career that are known and followed, that if I have been recruited, if I am entitled to do this course and to do this course, and after some time, if I have not done anything that is hindrance, I would be promoted, and so those must be. And then, of course, alongside all that is the reward, the remuneration, which again we have been talking about. You know, these soldiers go to the same markets that their masters go. Where Angola buys matoke is where Sabiti buys matoke. You know?
Yes, sir.
So, but what does Sabiti earn? You know? The people who earn 400,000 shillings for a month in the environment of Uganda, how do you expect them to live? You know? If you can't afford to have people that can be given a living wage, then don't have them. I always hear Mr. Museveni or General Museveni, saying that the UPDF sacrifice 40 years into government, you're asking people to sleep in horrible conditions, mama ingia pole, those thatched huts, 40 years. While in those 40 years, you have built palaces for yourself, you know? The renovation of State House in Entebbe was done at $60 million. $60 million. The one which was there was still functional, but it was not good enough for Mr. Museveni. But he comes out and says, you know, our soldiers are all right.
Immediate improvement for Queen Elizabeth who was coming.
Our soldiers are all right. They sacrifice a lot. 40 years on, they are living in grass-thatched houses with their families. You know, that is totally unacceptable and dangerous for the country. Okay. And so, we live in a country where we have very many armed people that are discontented. Very many. Don't think that all those people living in those shacks, guarding the thieves who are continuing to make it impossible for them to thrive,
yes, please,
that it will cause stability. It can't. And so we are in a very, very dangerous situation, you know, because all these people who are stealing, they are known. They are in the papers. The ones who have now reached stealing mabati, stealing what, you know, and with guards. The guards are sleeping in grass-thatched This is dangerous.
Yes, sir.
And as a country, we need to address it. So those are the two dynamics that I think are critical around this minister's death that need to be addressed.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for that analysis. First of all, you realize that there is a lot of increasing gun violence in this country. In Fort Portal, today morning, there have been reported someone who was killed and stolen, robbed, shot down and robbed their money. I think a few weeks ago, we've had cases in Fort Portal like that, 3 of them, gun violence happening. We have had the policemen who have stolen from thieves. If you've heard that story this particular week, policemen arrest the thieves and after steal from the thieves. Doctor, in such a situation that you look at like this, what is the Ugandan going to do as him? What power does he have? You'll answer that after this short commercial break. You're still watching the Interface Show. I'm seeing most of your comments coming through here. I'll be reading them subsequently, saying thank you so much, Kakwenza, Magara Brian, you are live, Shafiq Sanya, you are live, Senjako Dafala, thank you so much for watching. I have Fortunate Ampire. Many of you, Emma Kamgisha, Ronet Afimani, Gonzaga, Francis, you are too many. I'll be reading some of your messages subsequently. But let's go in for a short commercial break. When we come back, Doctor starts from that particular issue. What should a Ugandan who is watching right now do in this state of the country today? Let's go for a short commercial break.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Watching the Interface Show. My name is Genetically Modified and I'm privileged to have retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye on set today. We're still talking about what is happening in the country. Seeing Nana Mwafrika says Uganda's best friend. She has referred to you as Uganda's best friend. Shafiq says, my uncle paid 1 million. Nahamanya Ishmael says, apologies for that particular sound challenge. I was still reading some of the messages that we are having right here. Thank you so much for tuning in at this time, 1 minute past 11 a.m. You're still watching the Interface Show. Nana says Uganda's best friend. Then Nahamia Ishmael, you need to pay 1.5 million to be selected to join cadet training in the current Uganda. Shafiq continues to say his uncle paid 1 million. Kakwenza Rukirapaseja, thank you so much for watching. He says, greetings, Comrade Kizza Besigye. We love you and look up to you. Thanks for educating the nation to abate the docility. Shafiq says, I feel sorry for the youth who are 37 and below are still supporting NRM. God forgive them. I'm live from Ishaka, Bushenyi. So since when did it become a crime or a sin to support NRM? But let's continue. Norman says, today it's an English version. He was replying to Sanya, who was saying, Mr. Karuhango Rujungu Karwaba Rwingi Mnywani wanje. Sorry, this is an English show, but we always have the Luganda show also. Emma Kamgisha says, Kizza Besigye, thank you so much. Ron Afimani says, I'm watching live from Muyenga, Kampala. Thank you so much. Gonzaga Francis Keith, keep up the good work. Watching live from Fort Portal City. Yeah, we'll be reading most of your comments. Keep sending them through as we continue with this discussion. Doctor, as we are going for the short commercial break, we talked about what is now the role of Ugandans, because we've understood the people who are supposed to enforce the law, protect the law, are ironically being the ones to distort the law, are the ones who are breaking the law right now. The people like Private Sabit, who someone can ideally think that I'm protected by this person, I am safe with them. But if he's one of the people who can turn around and do something like that, a person whose track record is, for the last 16 years, he has been a private, but also he's not someone who has been notorious for some of these things. People say he does not even drink alcohol. He does not have any, mental disturbing substances that he consumes. If he can do this, doctor, what should Ugandans do about their safety today?
You see, the starting point, Edgar,
yes, sir,
must be on the foundations of the state itself.
Yes, please.
How is Uganda founded? We are talking about injustice in how we produce, injustice in how we get reward for our production, injustice in how we get services. That to start to end will come with changing how power in Uganda is controlled. That is extremely important to understand. The reason those who are privileged today enjoy their humongous, their great privileges against the suffering people, because the suffering people have no say, have no power over how these people accumulate their privileges. They have no power. I've been telling you how a large part of the budget is daily taken to the home of somebody, while there is no medicine in the hospitals, in the health centers. Some of the health centers in Uganda have not had any form of supplies now for 8 months. So they are literally closed. And the other day I saw a gentleman who has been also an activist, a gentleman called Besigye in Matete in Zimbabwe. He went and closed the health center, put padlocks on it, and he was arrested. I don't know whether he has been released. He was arrested for closing a health center. But he was making a statement that first of all, to close it, there was nobody inside because the health staff have no reason to be there. They open and go to do their things. There is no help that the health center is giving to people. So he came and closed it. That is going on. People are dying all over the country without help.
Yes.
While a lot of money is being siphoned off. You know, these soldiers see General Muhoozi with his parties where he goes with all musicians, you know, that are highly paid, and gather people to talk, you know, with convoys of many vehicles, while they have nothing to eat, living in those grass thatched. The reason is because they have no say on what is going on. They have no power. You know, you would normally remove a government through an election.
Yes.
When time comes, you say you didn't serve us well, get out. No leader has ever been removed by an election in Uganda. Not one.
Exactly.
So people have no say over those who lead the country. So the leaders are the almighty. They are the sovereign. They are the embodiment of the power of the country. They are sovereign. You know, that is what must change so that leaders become servants. And during the break, I was seeing on the screen, you know, exchanges about how to deal with corruption.
Yes.
You see, and somebody was saying we need to have strong institutions at the center that control accountability and of public resources. How do you get strong institutions when you have no power over those institutions? You see, institutions, if they are serving the population should have power over them. But they don't. So they cannot change those institutions if they are not doing a good job to say now we will have a different executive. This executive is hopeless. To say we will now transform the judiciary in this way. They have no power. To get that power, people must fight for it. It won't come, those who control it now will not just hand it over to the people so that the people control them. No. Anybody who is self-controlled cannot subject him to the control, willfully subject him or herself to the control of others.
Exactly.
So there is no way the sovereign, which is Museveni and his family, they are sovereign. That's why even now they are talking about succession in the family. They are sovereign. They should change the title from His Excellency General, I don't know what other titles, whatever, to His Royal Majesty. That is the right title, you know, His Royal Majesty. He's sovereign. That is what must change, and he won't hand it over to us. We must fight to change, turn the tables. And that's what revolutions all over the world have been about.
Yes.
When you read the French Revolution, how the British got the Magna Carta and so on, it is through the struggle, the fight of those who are dominated to regain their control of the state. That's what must happen here. And everybody must become participant, or at least the greatest majority of people must become participant in demanding, in fighting for, and in acquiring that power. And so that's why over the last many years, of course, even when I went to join the people who were in the bush, that's what I thought we were fighting for, that we would return power, use guns to defeat those who had illegally usurped the power of the people, and then have a transition to get people empowered again.
Only to realize that
that did not happen. Instead, we launched into what typically is the animal farm. Anybody who has read George Orwell's Animal Farm is exactly what happened to our revolution of NRA. You know, in fact, George Orwell, the Animal Farm, the animals evicted the master who was controlling the farm, Smith and whatever. And yes, they evicted them and took over the farm. But as soon as they took over the pigs, and pigs have been talked about here very much, they have been in a lot of the political language in Uganda. The pigs took over.
Yes.
The pigs.
The iron was that the pigs
yes,
took over.
and the pigs usurped the power of all the other animals. And they justified it exactly the same way these ones justified. You said all milk is for the pigs.
Exactly.
No, not actually because pigs like milk, but it has been scientifically proven that it is good for just like our pigs here. You know.
I wish everybody can read the Animal Farm.
They should.
Because when you read the Animal Farm, you relate.
And towards the end of that Kasmor book, you know, of course, the animals are no longer allowed near where the pigs are.
Anything.
Because the pigs have trained the dogs. They took the dogs somewhere and trained them to become, to protect them and to, you know, bite and grab anybody who came near to the pigs. You know, they were the special forces around the pigs, you know, and eventually, the people who were thrown off the farm became friends of the pigs and came back. And they were dining with the pigs. You know, these people who died trying to overthrow these ones realized that they had, you know, they came and peeped in the dancing hall where now the men that had been thrown off the farm were dining with the pigs. Of course, the pigs were no longer on fours. They were now on two legs with the bow ties and, you know, and they were dining with the people they had overthrown. Exactly what we have here, you know, because, you know, when I was in Ruzira first time, I spent time with Chris Rwakasisi, who at that time was in the condemned section of Ruzira prison because he had been condemned to death for some capital offenses. Chris Rwakasisi is now senior presidential advisor to Museveni on security. Taban Amin is, I think he's a deputy director general or something of external security.
The son of Oito Ojok is the spokesperson of the MK movement. I was with him here and I asked him, how do you sleep? How do you sleep defending the MK or speaking for the MK army?
Yeah, so it's the animal farm. It's the animal farm that we live in. So to start to change this,
Yes, doctor.
The animals must have real power. And, you know, it's so the revolution that we tried to undertake was hijacked. No doubt about it. Was hijacked. The pigs are now there. We must mobilize afresh. And the new mobilization, this is why we have been saying that the new mobilization requires fundamentally not to rely on force. We can mobilize non-violent resistance and weaken and take over the power.
Yes, please.
And once that happens, and anybody knows that if you get out of what people want, they have capacity to remove you, even if you have guns or whatever, then people will be respected.
Okay.
Then people will become sovereign. Then the institutions they create will respect them, will work in their interest. Institutions, this is very important. Institutions serve those who have power. So you cannot have institutions serve a population that has no power. No. Institutions will serve, today, all the institutions serve the sovereign. Mr. Museveni, whether it is the police, whether it is the army, whether it is the judiciary, whether it is what, they serve those who have power. Because indeed, those who have power create the institutions.
Exactly.
That is where the fight must be.
Okay.
That is the fight we must organize. And for me, that is the fight I have been pursuing really since the 2000s. You know, when I wrote the document that caused me problems, that's what I was talking about. How the NRM had lost its course, had been hijacked, was now an organization of corruption. That was the bell to say there is trouble again, you know?
Yeah.
Fellow animals, we have been taken for a ride.
Okay.
And as I have said, it takes time. Some people have been critical saying, but you know, you have tried this, you have tried that, it hasn't worked. Yes, it takes time. The British were here for 70 years.
Yes.
It took 70 years to get them to leave. So it takes time. It can take a much shorter time if you, the one who is criticizing, rather than criticizing, you joined in doing what needs to be done. Then it will take shorter. But by the time we influence the understanding of people who are bent on short-term gains and so on, yes, it takes quite a bit of time. But I am optimistic, like I said at the beginning.
Yes.
I am optimistic that we are making progress. But that is what will influence fundamentally the end of this gross injustice, of which corruption is just a part.
Doctor, aren't we going to go the Sudan style that is happening right now? Because as you mentioned, we have a country where our warlords have the power. And that is something, whether we accept it as a people or we don't, the warlords have power. And you know the egos, and you know the inequality or the inequality that is in the UPDF, as you've pointed it out. There are some people who get special treatment, the others who don't get special treatment. We have an arm in the UPDF that is not even constitutionally really recognized, but it's there and it has a lot of resources and it has a lot of support. Doctor, don't you think we shall go the Sudan style? Because there are people who have the power, and maybe if they fight against each other, aren't we going to go to the Sudan style?
It's very difficult to consider what exactly will happen. Many scenarios could unfold. what is happening in Sudan is actually a result of that legitimate struggle by the people of Sudan. It's a legitimate struggle. The people started the struggle when it was very clear that they could not be subdued.
Yes.
The military mutinied
Yes.
against al-Bashir, locked him up,
Yes.
and joined the people.
Yeah.
But the people were clear. They said, we are not going to continue having you, the military, hold power.
Yes, please.
And so there was a lot of negotiation until a civilian leader was accepted.
Yes.
Now, and they worked on a transition program.
Exactly.
When that program was about to come to the end, because there was a sticky issue of how, so al-Bashir, just like here, had created many forces.
Yeah.
So how to integrate those forces
Into the general
and subordinate them under the civilian authority became tricky for the leaders of those forces. And mark you, they are also afraid of the atrocities that they have committed
themselves. True.
themselves. So they then started to argue amongst themselves on that integration.
You've missed out. They first pulled away the civilian who was supposed to represent the
Yes,
people.
and
they
overthrew him.
Yeah. So it became a battle of egos.
Yes. So, but the instructive thing is the population has remained steadfast. The resistance by the people of Sudan has remained steadfast and united. Even as this fight, the people are saying you can fight, but at the end of the day, we shall not allow either or any of you to be in charge of us. So, regardless of how the fight ends, the people are now assertive. They will say, okay, if you have now finished sorting yourselves out, this is how we want you to be organized under our authority. So it's a struggle, and the struggles can take different turns, some ugly. Yeah. It was not necessary that that happens. But as I have said, you can't predict. And that's why it's absolutely necessary that the longevity of these dictators is cut short at the earliest possible. Because the longer they stay, the more they build, landmines of in the path of the transformation that is needed. They create a lot of problems in the path. Just like what we are talking about, here. What General Muhoozi is doing and all these people around them is extremely dangerous for the force that they claim to be a part of. And eventually all those land mines have a potential to explode and to create danger for the country. So the sooner we take charge, we organize ourselves and take guide what happens, the better. If we don't do it soon enough, all those land mines they are building can be stepped on. We can have chaos, we can have anarchy, and we can degenerate into a failed state. That is still a trajectory on our path. So what we are talking about, organizing and resisting this, is critical for the salvation, for the salvaging of the of the country and putting it on a path that engenders justice, equality, and therefore sustainable peace, stability, and development. When you talk about, you know, we are developing, you know, like now, you see people point at, you know, there is this highway on Entebbe, you know,
the most expensive road in the
was
world.
not there. Yes, of course, which anybody who was involved with it should be in jail for life for the crimes they have, you know, or what the Japanese are helping us with, building these flyovers. Say there is a development. All those things can come down in one day once the political situation changes. So development to be sustainable, you must have a just system. And that's what we must quickly organize for.
All right, you're still watching the Interface Show. My name is Edgar. I'm still with retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye. Some of your messages. Shafiq, Museveni is going to leave our country in a very critical condition because Museveni is building a country on force of the army, whereby any army commander is already, he already knows that he can lead the country by force. That is a very good view. Elas Jason says, the Animal Farm was indeed a political satire book. I liked it because it describes the exact thing in Uganda. The pigs put the laws themselves, wouldn't follow, and the pigs put the laws themselves and wouldn't follow, and any animal who broke the law was severely reprimanded and ripped apart by the vicious dogs. Kalyango Musa Mutesasira says, no better description of power changing from a dictatorship to civilian than what you just described. It won't come to us. We better find ways to get it. Greetings to Doctor. This is Emma Kamgisha. Greetings to Doctor. We love him. We are waiting for him to blow the whistle and we turn the tables, because we believe visual and digital technology needs an action force to make it effective. It's unfortunate Uganda is not a Syria country. It's more of a blockbuster country. Watching from DXB, much love from Masharuhure Farm, Rukungiri. Alternative Uganda, thanks for this program. I missed you out, been waiting for the notification when it's not coming. It's finally here. It will be good when the country is built on civilians, not on the army. Those are some of the messages. You can continue sending some of those messages subsequently. I'll be reading them, but because of time, let me just delve into another discussion. Doctor, this particular week we saw Muhoozi Kainerugaba meeting President Museveni with his movement and his team. Does this give legitimacy to the Muhoozi project, or the MK movement as it has been dubbed today? And just for clarity, it is not legalized. There's nothing to show. It's just a movement, and everybody's asking, but what is this movement you people are talking about? And then the president meets them, and an inside information says that President Museveni was trying to tell them to stop doing politicking in the country, which I'm not sure about. Those are some of the statements that were made. But Doctor, does this legitimize Muhoozi's quest for presidency come 2026?
Well, I think there is absolutely no doubt that Mr. Museveni has all these years been seeking to make his son his successor.
Which every father would want for his child.
Yes, but not by violating the trust and the order, the rules of a country, you know.
Yes.
But that's what Mr. Museveni has been doing. And Mr. Museveni has total contempt for people and for rules. He has absolute contempt. He says it's rubbish. The only thing he respects is force, which he believes he has. Anybody who does not have the force of military, he has an absolute contempt for. So he has contempt for the people of Uganda. He has contempt for law. He has contempt for systems. He has contempt for... So he sets out to create his successor within the force that he uses to control the country. And that has been going on up to now. As I have told you, he set out to do that in contempt of the rules that were there. That's how Muhoozi entered illegally, been promoted illegally. What he is focused on is to get him where he wants to be, so that he has what you are calling legitimacy now to succeed him. So what he's been doing lately, and I think it gained speed after Mbabazi, as he was mistakenly saying that he was in a queue. You know, Mbabazi believing there was a queue in NRM,
Yes.
in which he was also a
We've had that narrative.
in which he was a factor, and wanted to assert his right in the queue. I think Museveni realized that that should be stopped, so that there are no more pretenders to the throne. And so he has come out boldly to say, you know, the successor is this one. If he hadn't, I mean, there is absolutely no way Muhoozi would be trashing the military rules, trashing the country's laws, and doing what he's been doing. It is entirely because of the protection, the encouragement, the succor provided by Mr. Museveni himself. And so it is in line with that indeed he now formally met the lawbreakers and you know, he's trying to institutionalize them. However, like I have been saying, you know, what they are building is, you know, a monarchical power.
They call it a monarchical republic these days.
Yes. And so, I don't expect that Mr. Museveni will at any time step aside for Muhoozi, save when he will be in his casket. Like you saw Prince Charles. Prince Charles had quite a bit of waiting.
70 years.
He had quite a bit of waiting for this day.
70 years.
Yes, the day is today.
Yes,
That is when he is being crowned. It took 70 years of wait. Muhoozi should prepare himself for that kind of wait. The intention is, like has been, I think, said, is for him to be there as a standby. So, and everybody to know that there is a standby. So that the moment the other one goes out, the standby comes in. That is exactly what they are trying to do. They could have done it better without, you know, creating the kind of contempt for the constitution, for the laws, for the people of Uganda that they are displaying.
It feels like we are shameless these days as a country. In literally everything, not just that.
It's not as a country. Those who are holding the country hostage are shameless. And that lack of shame is expected. You see, people who have been in power for nearly 40 years, their sense of reality is eroded. They don't have the, the same kind of sense of reality. They don't know how people feel. They don't know what people think of them. They believe that, at one time, in fact, Mr. Museveni said that the president is next to God. So he believes actually that he's up there after the Almighty.
But isn't he?
After
When
the
you think about
Almighty,
it, isn't he?
that he's there. So once he's there and he believes that he's Almighty, then he can have his way, regardless. You see, you're asking about shame. Then he has no shame to do anything he feels like doing, because what can anybody do? Yes, so that feeling of invincibility, of having absolute power and authority, builds the kind of behavior that you are talking about, of being shameless, of being inconsiderate of what others think of what you are doing, or and of course, this is very, very far, incomparable, has nothing to do with the power of God, saying you are near God. Because God is a God of justice. So what they are doing is satanic. The force they are using is satanic force. Not anywhere. If he said he was the deputy of Satan, then it would be understandable, because Satan is not about justice. But it has nothing to do with God. God is a God of justice. Before God, we are all equal. All of us are equal. And the judgment will be fair according to how each one has fared. I've employed the gifts that we are given. So, and actually increasingly talk about a satanic force. There is some kind of a satanic force really, haunting our country, keeping people blind, keeping what would be activists diverted. You find people fighting over small things amongst themselves,
Yes.
And not focusing on the flood that is coming to sweep all of them. Pretty much like what was happening when Noah was building an ark. They were saying, there is a storm coming, please,
Into the ark.
But people were completely unable to envision what was happening. So I think that, we really need also to pray for our country, apart from fighting, which I have said is the path. We must fight. We must also pray for justice to prevail, because as I have said, we are almost on our own, because when you find religious leaders are part of the injustice. Yes. And this is not new, the Bible says that everything that is seen now has been there before. This is where we've been, where temples had been turned into markets.
And Jesus had to speak something.
Yes. So we are at a very, very critical point as a country, and really thinking that leaders can have shame is completely, out of the way. We have to fight for ourselves and to change this, and to create the transition that builds justice, equal rights, equal opportunities, and then we can develop in a way that is sustainable.
Exactly. As you are submitting, you mentioned something about the justice and the injustices. And President Museveni was recently on Joan Kagezi Memorial Lecture, and he mentioned that corruption is one of the things that are disturbing the country. And at the time he speaks, we are having a minister who has just got bail, who has been in prison for more than 2 weeks, that is 3 weeks, Agnes Nandutu, State Minister for Karamoja Affairs. Can we finally say as a country that there is something that is being done on corruption?
Absolutely not. Because
But
as I have told you, these are just pawns in the game. As I have told you,
Yes, please.
the fundamental injustice is for people to control our power and our resources without our authority and our oversight to determine how we want our resources to be applied for our benefit. That's where the corruption starts. So this whole system is a system of corruption and cannot be sorted out by, taking one minister to prison for 2 weeks. Even all these people who are in prison and coming out, they are still ministers. Yes. So even when Museveni is saying, I'm now going to fight injustice, there is no way a corrupt person can fight corruption. I've told you that the biggest corruption is in the State House. So there is no way he can fight corruption. And even where there have been some efforts, remember some years back, some ministers were censured. Minister Kutesa was censured.
Yes.
He was a junior minister, he was promoted to become a senior minister.
Yes.
Jim Muhoozi was censured, and these were for corruption. Yes. Censured for corruption, but Mr. Museveni saw it necessary to bring them back into leadership. For him, he could not see anybody better
Than those
in the 40 million than those who had been formally censured for corruption. There was a convict, a lady, who was convicted of taking Gavi funds,
Yes.
the money for vaccines, was convicted actually on her own plea of guilt.
She said, I was guilty, I took the money.
Yes, she pleaded guilty. She was convicted. She is a minister today. So there is absolutely no way Mr. Museveni can fight corruption. As I've said, the whole system is built on corruption. I told you these Mabati people, the reason they steal Mabati is because that's what is inside. They don't have the same privilege of ordering the Bank of Uganda to take money to them so that they can also take to distribute to their constituents. Because that's how people get elected. We don't have elections in Uganda, we have auctions. The highest bidder
Takes it all.
is the winner of the election. So the moment that winner steps in office, he or she must start building the war chest, the money and the resources to engage in the next auction.
Yes.
So that's what is happening now. As I have said, these Mabati people were simply unfortunate that they took some things which were noisy and shiny and baroque. And soon enough, some people made noise and
the people who made noise, ironically, were also not gaining because they are the ones making losses. They're like, hey, our ashes are not moving these days.
Yes. So nothing is going to happen.
So what is
even before this Mabati, there was the National Social Security Fund.
Yes.
Again, the scam which the National Social Security Fund is, managed from General Saleh's home in Kapeka, and eventually to calm down everybody, they put a committee of parliament to inquire into it. The committee of parliament recommended the resignation or indictment of the minister. You saw the minister was the one receiving Museveni on Labor Day. where Mr. Museveni was talking about those things of corruption. The one who called him to address has been recommended for indictment for corruption. So there is, Mr. Museveni and corruption.
So what is this that we are seeing?
One and the same, are inseparable.
So what
the country's hope for dealing with corruption, as I have told you, is a revolution for people to throw this whole scam away and reorganize the country, rebuild the institutions. Institutions now that will serve people that have created them. Yes. We must rebuild the institutions. We must rebuild the legal framework on how power is shared and managed. We must decentralize power in reality to different parts of the country so that the people can be closer to their service points. Decentralization is not creation of districts. When all money is in Kampala, decentralization is decentralizing the control of wealth and how it is used and how people decide on things that happen in their areas. They must have the real wealth there that is decentralized that they are controlling. That is not, so all this must happen in the transition, reorganizing the country. But we will not get a transition without throwing out this whole scam. Okay. Of course, again, some people have been raising the whole idea of dialogue between those who have captured Uganda and their captives.
Yeah.
And you saw Mr. Mao while joining the captors, claiming that he was joining them to advance the idea.
He says you'll see his fruits.
That he is going to advance the idea of the dialogue. The dialogue that the country needs is only one.
Which one is that?
How to end this scam and to have a transition. Now that you cannot have by being part of the scam. You can't. So, and it will not happen. Those who control the country will not even consider having dialogue with those who want to take over their power, if they think those who want to take over their power have no capacity to do so. So we must first build the capacity, real power of taking of overcoming the captors. Just like the British saw that it was no longer tenable to hold on to the colonies, then they negotiated how they live.
Yes.
That is what must happen here. We will not have dialogue without credible force that can subdue those who have captured our country. We must first build a credible force, capacity, which then they see that this is unstoppable.
This is serious now.
They said this is unstoppable. So maybe to save ourselves and have some dignity in our departure, let's talk about how we go. That is the dialogue that the country should entertain. So for that to happen, we must first build the credible capacity to overwhelm them, which is what at least I wake up every day trying to do. To talk to people, to create a network of leaders that can come together and take action and resist. That's what we must do.
Okay. I had just a message here. We have a few minutes to end this show. A gentleman called Magembe Patrick. Magembe Patrick says that, Doctor, please comment on our allowances. Yeah, I think he's a student from either Chambogo or Makerere. The students have been striking concurrently the same week, both over the same issue, and that is the issue of allowances. Doctor, do you have any comment for Magembe?
You see, education is not the priority of this regime, and that's what we are talking about. We have no power to determine the priorities of our country. Those who have power, their priority is how to maintain themselves in office, in power. So they take money for patronage to give to people who may oppose them. They take money to build more security apparatus around them, to create more dogs around the palace. They take the money to pay people who engage in their propaganda to confuse the public, their propaganda machine, who are always dotted on these radios and so on. The RDCs, all those are propaganda machinery for the sustenance of power. That is their priority. Not education, not health, not clean water, not... So, I am aware. That's why you see doctors are on strike.
Yes.
Because even in the next budget, already a doctor in Uganda is supposed to oversee 20,000 to 25,000 people to look after the health of 20,000 to 25,000 people. One doctor. Yet we have a policeman for every 1,000 people. No doctor, but you have a policeman. For every 1,000 people, you have a policeman. For every 25,000, you have one doctor who is not being paid. And whose budget is continuing to be cut. So the same thing with education. Government-sponsored students have not been given money. Many of them are in rented quarters, rented places. They are being thrown out because they cannot pay. They have no food, because they were deceived that they would be catered for by the government. Yet money is going somewhere different. So, really, what I can tell those students, and whether they are government-sponsored students or private-sponsored students, injustice must be fought by all. Again, one of the dilemmas we have is that each one who is having a crisis looks at just resolving his own crisis. If it is doctors, you find the ones who are involved in maybe teaching, saying, now let the doctors, they see it as a problem of doctors.
When the science teachers get increment, they are okay.
Yes, the science teachers don't want to know what is happening to their colleagues. Though I understand even the money for the science teachers has now...
They've finally approved it Parliament. I think recently, a week ago. It was approved by Parliament.
Yeah, being approved and getting it are different things.
Yes,
so, we must all fight together injustice. Injustice has no boundaries. Injustice for one person is injustice, should be injustice for all people, And that's why, you see, these ministers, one of them I saw him, who came out of prison. I think he's the one who was crying before he went to the prison. I saw him crying because he had been now...
He wasn't crying, but it's okay.
That's what it was reported. But when he came back from prison, he said, the conditions in the prison is terrible. We must work on the situation which we have been shouting about, Nobody wants to know that they can go to Ruzira, Before it happens, nobody cares. All these other ministers, they are not bothered. Even when this one was making noise, they are not bothered about the condition of inmates. You see, until it catches up with you. When they take them to court, when they are applying for bail, I hear all of them say, you know, like in the case of Kizza Besigye, because we are the ones who advanced the rights for bail. So we are reference points, but they would never want to hear. They say, you know, those are hooligans. They are disturbing the state until they find themselves in such a situation. So injustice for anyone must be injustice for everyone.
Yes, Doctor.
And we must all have the duty and responsibility to act together to end that injustice.
Doctor, we've come to the end of this discussion. In a nutshell, your parting shots.
Well, I can only wish all citizens well in these very troubled times. I know how very, very difficult it is to get by, but be encouraged that, you know, even other people, other countries, other communities have passed through these kinds of situations where people don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, where they feel they are despondent, where they think, you know, nothing can change. This is actually the sign that something is about to happen. I can very clearly see the end times for the times we are in. And so, even as we struggle to get by, be confident, be strong, let's unite. Twegatte, tulumbe, twetase.
Okay, thank you so much, Doctor. The roads are in a poor state. Hospitals are bad, low. People with gunmen are just killing each other. This is just like this gentleman has just said. He says that it's in fact Ron Afemani. He says Uganda is getting more spoiled, and I really don't know how it will be in 3 or more years to come. Yeah, I also ask myself that question each and every day. Where is Uganda going? Because the truth is, living in Uganda is really a survival thing. We are living in survival mode. So I hope things get better. That is the only thing I can only tell you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Tune in next Saturday at exactly 10 a.m. to midday. We shall have Mr. Muhoozi Arnold Anthony, and there will be a Uganda version with retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye. Thank you so much. You can continue following us on our social media platforms at Digitalk TV on Facebook, at The Alternative Uganda, still on Facebook, on Instagram at The Alternative Uganda, Twitter at The Alternative UGA. Drop in some comments. We'll be, continuing the conversation there. Thank you so much. See you soon. God bless Uganda.